Let's get ready to talk now. It's Monday, 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Facebook and YouTube Live Dialogue with Dozie is on. Listen, I need to talk to you, boy, tonight. Got a lot of stuff facing, trying to get through the show. We're going to talk about the show in a second. Let's kind of talk about some of the current events that's going on. My boy KD, I gave him the night off. Okay, don't tell him I said that. Tonight, the hot thing in the news is, and that's going to lead me to do some house, what they call it, house notes or whatever. We're going to talk about the show before we get into tonight's show. Today, Michael Cohen, the former president's fixer. Wouldn't it be nice to have a fixer? Wouldn't it be nice to have a fixer that when you act crazy, you got somebody to clean your mess up for you? Anyway, the former president's his official title was an attorney, but we all know him as a fixer. Michael Cohen actually was on the stand tonight. And this is the first time that he has been in a room with the Donald since he went to prison and since he's come back, and all of this stuff is going on. And he has written books about the former president and about his role in trying to clean up his mess. And so today they were just feet apart from each other, and the orange man had to sit there and listen to Michael Cohen give testimony against him. So on the highlights, and these are the essentials of the case. I'm a former law enforcement, former narcotics officer, and the thing that we had to do in any case, the big thing we had to do was get the elements of a statute. We had to cover the elements. It wasn't all the peripheral stuff, it wasn't all the fluff. It was about getting the elements of a case. In this case that Melvin Bratton has put together it's not Melvin Bragg, it's put together in New York, centers around the fact that money was stashed and it was kept quiet. So the voters of the United States of America would not know about one of the indiscretions of the president, and that he hid that. So that's a federal offense according to federal statutes. And nobody can prove that more than allegedly than Michael Cohen is. And so he starts his testimony doing that today. And of course, the defense has already started the smear campaign. They've come on and tried to prove, as they did with Stormy Daniels, they asked her, did she hate the president, the former president? They're trying to build a case that Cohen is out to get revenge. One of his books is called Revenge. And they're saying he's trying to get revenge by coming in and giving such damaging testimony. The whole case really hinges on some of the testimony that Michael Cohen is giving. Some of that testimony is, in fact, that President Trump made statements, former President Trump made statements explicitly that he was paying Cohen back for having paid Stormy Daniels to shut down and to pay her hush money, in other words. And the essentials are that Trump, the thing that the defense is trying to negate is the fact that Cohen knew about it. I mean, that Trump knew that this, in fact, was going on, that these were the purpose of these payments. And some very interesting stuff came out today. There's a lot of interesting stuff, some very unseemingly stuff, very sordid details came out last week when Stormy Daniels was on the bench, but not the bench, but on the witness stand. But today, it's coming out that Cohen really idolized Trump. That he immediately, in fact, he was so happy to be hired by Trump that he never went back to his law offices that he was employed by, once he was employed by Trump. And this is one of the real crazy factors. This man apparently was not making enough money. He just didn't have this cash on hand. He put his house up for the $120,000 that were needed to make the payment, the hush money payment. And so he has tapes of where Trump is very openly saying and making it known that I'm paying him back, Cohen back in intervals for the $120,000 that he allegedly paid for the hush money to Stormy Daniels. So we got a lot of stuff going on. I am pivoting tonight. I know we were going to talk about the Martin show. That's how the show was marketed. We were going to do the Martin show. We're going to do a look back at the Martin show. But can a brother just be tired? That's what I am. Up until showtime, I almost asked the producer, let's pull the trigger on tonight's show. Let's do a rerun. I am just dog dead tired. Football season, spring season hit me on last week, and it hit me with the vengeance. I don't know if you know, but it is 90 plus degrees down in South Florida. And it was so hot that, in fact, when we took the field, we were, according to new limits of the county, we were only allowed to practice for an hour. And that changed once we got out the heat factor. It wasn't the temperature, but it was the heat index lowered under the limit. And thankfully, our new head coach was cognizant enough of the heat. And of course, it was replete with many water breaks. But the one thing that he did was he kind of ended things because he ended practice a little early because it was just simply too hot. It was hot out there. So I'm worn out from the sun. I'm probably not as young as I used to be. And that's probably one of the things that contributes to me. So we pivoted from the Martin show because I don't want to do a half show. I wanted that to be one of our better shows. I want to be like the Dallas look back as we look back at some of these shows. I wanted to ask you, we've scheduled 2 O.J. Simpson shows in November and in June. We scheduled the show to talk about the actual what actually happened, and we're going to do a lot of look back at O.J. Simpson before he became this very infamous. Before he became the pariah of America, when he was America's darling, he was in our living rooms on TV making the Hertz commercials. In fact, yeah, I see the smiley face. Yeah, Mac, I know we're doing that next week. But so before the events of June of 1994, OJ was I can still see the commercial. Go OJ, go, and we'll show that when we do the OJ. So we're doing a 2-part show. The first show is to talk about OJ himself, one of the greatest running backs in the history of the NFL and college football, one of the greatest college football players of all time out of Southern Cal. But we're going to look at that. We're going to look at the horrible murder scenes. And Madam Producer, there's a story that we're going to talk about when we get to that program. Madam Producer, our oldest child, she's so innocent on the show. You guys just don't know. There was a police officer. I know I'm getting to the show in just a second. There was a police officer. He's probably about 6'8", a motorcycle cop that was on the scene there on Bundy Drive where Nicole was killed and where her apartment is located. And we were out there doing 94. The event, the tragedy occurred in June. We were there in August. And we asked him, could we take pictures? And he said, you can take all the pictures you want to, but you just can't stop. You can walk along the sidewalk, but you just can't stop. And that's what we were complying, just walking almost like a picket sign, walking back and forth, taking pictures, looking one time at unfortunately where the event took place, not the event where the scene was, and then going back and looking. All of a sudden, this officer made a traffic stop, and that traffic stop led to an arrest, Mac. And so he had to call in a unit to transport. So he ended up being tied up about an hour. Well, while he was tied up, so many people just took the liberty of just taking all kind of pictures. Madam Producer, who I think probably should have been about 14 or 15 back then, 94. Let me see if I can count up her. Yeah, she was about, about 13, 14, maybe 13. She walked up right on the scene and took pictures because the officer was tied up over in the street making the arrest. Then we looked again. She was like on the back porch, walking up Nicole's back steps and taking pictures all inside. Or we only still had those pictures. So that's something. She did some other things. The next year we went to Massachusetts, went to the Kennedy compound. Governor Dukakis and Ed Kennedy were hosting people for a convention bureau for the state of Massachusetts in the back of the compound behind the main house where Joe Kennedy and Rose Kennedy lived. And one of the bus driver who drove a group of those people told her, "So you can just go up there." The Secret Service and everybody was there. But how about her? She actually walked up on the porch and took pictures right on Joe Kennedy's. So anyway, tonight's show. So the Martin show we're going to do next week, and if I have to tape, we'll do it next week. And we got some fun stuff to do with that show. But tonight we're going to look at, actually there are 8. We're going to discover Florida. There are 8 regions in the state of Florida. So I started saying we're going to do OJ part 1 and part 2. 1 week we're going to talk about little OJ background. We're going to show some of his stuff. A beloved actor, a commercial guy. Hertz pitchman, and then we're also going to, unfortunately, talk about the murder itself, the eventual Bronco chase, and all of that. The next week, we're going to look at what at that time was the trial of the century. It was called the trial of the century. We don't know. Seemingly, it kind of lost some of its luster after this trial is going on in New York, but we're going to take 2 weeks in June, which will mark the 30th anniversary of that horrific event night out in Brentwood, out in Los Angeles, and we're going to do that over in June. So just be ready for those 2 weeks. OJ's part 1 and part 2. I almost pulled a plug on those shows after his demise, but I think that was just too historic. This show captures culture, and that was one of the biggest things in the last 30, 40 years, and I think it would be remiss for us not to talk about it. Tonight, we're looking at, tonight is like a predicate. So I'm a retired school teacher. Tonight, it's almost as though I'm setting the groundworks for, it's as though I'm setting the groundworks for what will be recurring shows, We'll do them, maybe one next month, maybe one a couple months. But we're going to look at the 8 regions of our beautiful state, as Dr. Brace can say, the great state of Florida. Now, I'm probably more of a Floridian than I am an American, and I don't mean to sound unpatriotic. Is that right? Unpatriotic, Mac. But I'm big on my state. When I didn't live in it, 13, 14 years that I lived out of state, man, I really appreciated what Florida was and what it meant. And I couldn't wait for the first opportunity to get back to the great state of Florida. It's not the same state it was back then because we got some lunatics running it right now. Did I say that? I'm sorry. I thought that we've been blessed to travel in the 50 states of the United States. I've been to every major city in America. The only 2 I haven't been to are Cleveland and San Antonio. I want to go to San Antonio. Cleveland, they used to call it the mistake on the lake. That's nothing I break my neck trying to get to. But I do want to see San Antonio at some point. But after traveling and seeing all of the natural beauty, particularly on the West, out in the last year, we did the golf trip out in Vegas, out in Utah. It was just gorgeous. We've gone through the Grand Canyon several times. But I still posit that Florida is the greatest state in all 50 of the United States. And so tonight, we're going to look, it's just like New York and California. Listen, Max, South Florida, Miami, or South Florida, period, is actually New York South. There's so many New Yorkers down here that when the Dolphins play down here, when the Knicks play down here, the Mets, but oh gosh, that when the Yankees are in Marlins Park, it's as though it's a Yankees home game because there are so many New Yorkers down here. But tonight I want to set the predicates talking about the state. I want to talk about the 8 regions. I know we know North Florida, South Florida, Central Florida, but we don't know that actually the state is kind of divided by the tourist industry into 8 regions. And I'm going to list the 8 regions tonight. And after listing them in recurring shows, we're going to talk about what's the best region for vacation, what region has the best economy, what region gives you the best, where do you get more bang for your buck as far as the cost of living, the housing prices, Certainly ain't South Florida, I tell you that. What's just the needs? What's the most overpopulated? What's the least populated? We'll do some shows and look at those things. But tonight I just want to set a predicate and talk about the 8 regions of the state of Florida. I think we'd be surprised to know how it's actually divided up. No more free advertisements until you sponsor this show. That company, you know what I'm talking about. Want to ask Madam Producer, if you don't mind, flash that poster up. That flash those. She might be mad and she might not do it, but anyway, flash the poster of the state of Florida, and I want to kind of cover these regions, and then we're going to go back and kind of talk about them, region for region. That poster I sent earlier, map of the regions and the parts of the state of Florida. Is it possible to get that up? Let's see. Let me do a little work here. If I have to resend it or whatever I need to do, I'll do that. I'm asking. Seeing if she can get that up for me. Okay. So until she do that, let me just go ahead and start talking about. Florida is divided into 8 regions, tourist-wise. And I'll tell you the site that I used. It was the Florida Travel blog. Thank you, ma'am. And it was the one that showed. So I want to start by listing the cities that kind of borders, so you'll know. The first part is Northwest Florida. And Northwest Florida really begins maybe 100 miles or so west of Tallahassee, and it covers the northwestern section of Florida. In fact, we like to call it the Panhandle. However, the Panhandle covers more than just that part of Florida. So Northwest Florida, the major cities in Northwest Florida are, and you guys don't know this, but I had to take Florida history and geography when I was in high school, and one of there's this city I knew about and learned about all these resources and things. You're going to think that I am a geography nut, and I probably am. Defuniak Springs is a nice tourist attraction over in West Florida, just west of Marianna. Marianna, of course, is where I think it's called the Dozie Center, which people around the state just knew it as Marianna. That's where a lot of people were sent juvenile delinquents, and the Miami Herald did an expose since we've been here. We've been here now about 25, 26 years. I think about the end of the last decade. Well, in 1999, I think they started a series where they really exposed all of the brutality that happened to the kids in that center over there. And I'll tell you the story about that on another show. But anyway, Marianna is kind of like the eastern border of the northwest section of Florida, and it runs all the way to Pensacola. And then down from that is on the Gulf. This is, of course, the Gulf of Mexico side. This is not the Atlantic Ocean side, which is on the east coast of Florida. Is Panama City. And Panama City and Fort Walton Beach have become great tourist attractions in the state of Florida. Panama City and Panama City and Fort Walton Beach. Now, when I was a policeman in Central Florida in Daytona, it was like the spring break capital. It was always back and forth between Daytona and Lauderdale for the spring break capital. I think Fort Lauderdale, Daytona is where they do Black Spring Break or something now that's kind of taking that over. But spring break, and of course, South Florida has done everything it can to kind of discourage spring breakers down here. Down in South Florida, Miami particularly, Lauderdale kind of joined this year. But Fort Walton Beach and Panama City are 2 of the major spring break attractions in the state of Florida. If you don't know how much that pours into the region's economy, so many people come down. A lot of people just don't want to deal with college kids, and I get that. I was young myself when I was working law enforcement in that place. But That's a lot of money that pours into the economy from Fort Walton and Panama City, which have become main places for spring break in the state of Florida. It's on the Gulf of Mexico. And one thing about the west coast of Florida, or that region, the northwest Florida region, they have white sand beaches. And I tell you, they're not built up like East Coast beaches like Fort Lauderdale, Daytona, even Jacksonville. But I tell you, you can't beat that beautiful white sand. So the northwest section of Florida is kind of bordered from Lake City, Apalachicola, over to Pensacola, and that's the northwest region of Florida. Now, before we head to the break, I want to cover another region. There are 8 regions, and again tonight I'm just giving a scant review of them. The next one is you see the brown area. That is the north central state of region of Florida, and that covers. And I was really surprised at these boundaries. That covers the larger cities. Apalachicola, of course, is the border on the west now, and it goes all the way down south to Gainesville. It goes all the way down south to Gainesville, and it kind of stops on the east coast. The east Lake City is the eastern boundary. So just figure from Apalachicola to Lake City. The larger 3 cities are Tallahassee, Lake City, and Gainesville. Now, here's what's so funny about that region. When we start talking about the economy, those nights that we designate talk about the economy and where you most want to live and those kinds of things. The thing about that region of the state is that you have 4 major universities there. You got 4 major state universities there. You have the University of Florida in Gainesville. You have Florida State University in Tallahassee. You have FAMU in Tallahassee. Did I say 4? Okay, so I forgot that it actually stops us. So there are 3 major universities. The previous region that we just covered, Northwest Florida. I know y'all think I'm like a geek to be talking about this. This stuff fascinates me though. The University of West Florida is over in Pensacola. Now, Pensacola is right on the Alabama line. You're just minutes from Alabama once you're in Pensacola. I do work over in Pensacola, and I've got a chance to become more acquainted with it in the last year or 2. Pensacola has the University of West Florida. But in that north central region, you have 3 of the major universities, state universities, are located right there in that north central region. You have Tallahassee, you have University of Florida, you have Florida State University, and you have FAMU located. Both of them, of course, being located there in Tallahassee. One other thing I forgot to mention about the northwest region of Florida is that the northwest region has has a large concentration of Air Force personnel. A large concentration of the Air Force is right there in Pensacola, Florida. Eglin Air Force. Eglin, I think, is in San Antonio. Let me see. Let's see, where's Eglin Air Force Base? Okay. Once you engage Siri, you have to. Okay, let me go to my other source. Let's see here. I'm just. If it's not Eglin, I know it's still one of the larger Air Force places in the United States. Eglin is located in is that Pensacola? Yeah, Eglin is in Pensacola. Okay, one of the largest Air Force bases in the world, and one of the things that kind of lets me know their version of the Blue Angels was here this week in South Florida in Fort Lauderdale for the Air and Sea Show. In fact, 2 of those planes, their wings clipped, and thank God there was no disaster associated with it. So back to the north central Florida. That's one of the things about that. And of course, I'm just skimming this. We'll talk more specifically about economics. This big Florida is a big producer of pulpwood, and that's a large pulpwood region there, that Lake City region of Florida, Stark, Gainesville, all of that stuff. A large pulpwood area, and a lot of wood areas processed right there in that area of the state of Florida. Now, when I look at these areas of Florida, I start shivering. I'm not on camera, I don't think, but I start shivering because it's cold in those areas. It's not very, very Florida-esque to me. So it's not very Florida-esque to me. I start looking at them and I start shivering automatically. Tallahassee, I'll keep our son play for Florida for FAMU, and I can remember just how, oh man, I don't know how anybody can play football in that cold weather. But anyway, we came from Illinois, so certainly you can play in Florida. I think I saved the other 6 regions to after the break so that I won't get. So let me introduce the next region. I was surprised at the boundaries of, and again, I'm using this is not any official, but this is just one of many agencies or travel people that have chronicled these to kind of help people with people moving to the state, and people are moving to Florida faster than any state in the union, of course. And so this kind of helps people to understand where, what's located and where. The next region that I probably would be talking about is I want to talk next about Northeast Florida. And let me just tell you real quickly what the boundaries are. The boundaries of Northeast Florida are Fernandina Beach, all the way down to Melbourne. And that really surprised me. I thought that Melbourne area and all of that, Daytona, all of that area would be more like Central Florida, but it's looked at as the Northeast Florida section. Again, this is how the Florida travel blog, this is how they have categorized it. Everybody else may not look at it like this. Thank you for the shot, Madam Producer. I appreciate that. I want to come back and talk about that region after the break. Let's go to break. We got a lot to talk about. GoGigaWorld.com. Your virtual needs. You just saw it in the course. I don't have to say anything. I have to say this. You want to be a part of that, okay? GoGigaWorld.com. They have some awesome products, your web building, all of your virtual needs. They got you. All you got to do is contact the two Latoyas and Markia and the rest of their team. They will hook. They got the hook up for you. Hook them up and check them out. Okay, bro, Marcus, welcome aboard. I hadn't seen you in a while. Good seeing you, my brother. So good seeing you. There are a couple things we want to do here before we go back to the show. Yours truly will be appearing on Thursday night. Thursday night is when I do Bible study, but we're gonna pivot over and do because I think very strongly about this, and God has dealt with me about this. Something that I need to. I'm going to be talking about dealing with prostate cancer as a prostate cancer survivor. Hello, Miss Linda. I was asked to be their guest, and I saw their show last Thursday night. They had a sister that talked about lupus. They're doing a series on health things, particularly in our community, and I think this needs to be blown up, and more people need to see this across the world. And I'll be sharing with you about the prostate cancer journey. And just check us out on the Gold Square podcast. You can get it on Facebook, YouTube, on Miss Linda Scott's personal page, and check that out. Thursday night it comes on at 8 o'clock Central. 8 o'clock Eastern time. I hope I'm right, Madam Producer. If I'm wrong, please correct me. 8 o'clock Eastern time. And so we'll be taking a hiatus from Bible study this week in order for that. Check us out. They have called this show Nut to Crack, and that's to dealing with, particularly in our community, prostate cancer and all of its damaging, and to say to you that it does not have to be fatal. I'm a living witness by the grace of God. Okay, I got somebody I got to deal with on this show at this point before we move back into the show. And tonight is a dang dog. Oh my gosh. I still can't believe this. Tom Brady, who's not hurting for money, you know. He's not hurting for money. No, he didn't get all the money he could have got in the heart of his career at the New England Patriots. He took a year off from football, and this year he's moving to the top broadcast team over at Fox. And I'm sure he's going to have a lot of interest in. They call him the GOAT. One night we'll do that as a show. I still remember Bradshaw and Staubach. But anyway, they had a roast, and it was hosted by Kevin Hart on Netflix a couple of weeks ago, and it has gotten a lot of attention. It's pretty controversial, and one of the well, there were two areas, and I want to talk about them. I mean, really, Tom? Dang, dog, did you have to have a roast? I mean, you're constantly in the news. Anything you do, they talk about it. If you scratch your forehead, they talk about it. You're going to be on TV shortly. Every week, you're going to be in America's living rooms on the top broadcast team at Fox. You'll get the top game every week. Dang, dog, a roast? Why did you need that? Who made money from this? What charity made money from this? I'm interested to know. But two things happened that shouldn't have happened. First of all, you mess with the mother of his children, Giselle. Dang, dog, that was totally unnecessary, uncalled for. And she was pretty upset about that. Dang, dog, shouldn't there be some parameters? If you're going to have a roast like that and you're going to talk about people, shouldn't the man's wife and kids been left alone? You had enough stuff to talk about Tom by yourself. Dang, dog, I don't know how much you're a part of this, Kevin Hart. I know you said that you're to be credited because you were a black man who brought a roast like this together, that brought out so many people, and somebody made so much money. But dang, dog, the man's wife and kids shouldn't have been left out of this. But this is the real killer. You made fun of a deceased ex-teammate of Tom Brady. He's an ex-Florida Gator. You all made fun about this. You made several jokes. There were 5 specific jokes about Hernandez, the man who was arrested for murder and sentenced to life in prison, and who hung himself after being acquitted of another murder case. And there were so many jokes, even from Julian Edelman and others, people that you wouldn't expect. Dang, dog, y'all really blew it. How can you make fun about a man who has a girlfriend left behind and a little baby, and his parents, not to mention his siblings and other loved ones? Dang, dog, you really dropped the ball. I brought those jokes, but I'm not going to talk about them because I don't want to give any vent to that. I remember the roast that used to come on Thursday nights, the Dean Martin roast. They're the best roast of all time, and I think Kevin Hart, that's what you guys are trying to duplicate. But dang, dog, you had absolute enough material to deal with without talking about Aaron Fernandez or Giselle or Tom's kids. Next time y'all do something like this, leave sensitive areas like this. Dang, dog. Okay, back at you. Oh, I had to have a little fun, but you know, that was really kind of over the line. Saw a nice documentary on the Aaron Fernandez on last night. Okay, so the Golden Square podcast is 7 p.m. Central Time, but it's 8 o'clock Eastern Time. So that'll be Thursday night. And we may, Madam Producer, we may even share it to my page, or maybe the Dialogues page if it can be done so. That's this Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central Time. Okay, back to these these regions. We've covered two. I've just listed the northeast region of Florida. The northeast region goes from Fernandina Beach to Melbourne. So that covers the big cities that are covered in that are Jacksonville, popular cities, Daytona, and of course the Space Coast. All of the Space Coast, that's the yellow area that you see on the right side of the map. That's the northeast section of Florida. Jacksonville, my hometown, which has my partner's hometown, current hometown. It has, at one time, there were 4 naval bases in Jacksonville itself. 4 naval bases, and I think there are now 2. I think since Cecil Field has been diminished substantially, and Mayport is still in existence. That's on the east coast of Jacksonville, over on the beach side of Jacksonville Beach. But it starts actually with Fernandina Beach. So Jacksonville bills itself as the gateway to the south, or the gateway to Florida. But actually, Fernandina Beach is the first. It's not right along 95, but it's one of the first areas you pass through. And of course, Fernandina, when I was getting ready to leave the state in the mid 80s, Amelia Island was just becoming really becoming a real player as far as part of the tourist industry. I think Kim, we have honeymoon there, and I have family members that have honeymoon there and have vacation there. My wife and the Madam Producer and our girls went out there a few years ago. So it's becoming a real major player. It just goes to show you, like Naples. Naples doesn't have to be real large, but it has become a major player. Yes, I'm glad you said that. American Beach. That was where, when we couldn't go to Jacksonville Beach, Neptune Beach, and all them beaches, yeah, that's where black people had to go. American Beach. We went to American Beach, and we did have Little Talbot Island there in Jacksonville. That was a little area that was cornered off from Jacksonville Beach for blacks only. You want to know how I know about it? Because it was during my lifetime, and I'm only 7 years old shortly. That was what we had to deal with in the great state of Florida. We were limited to American Beach in Fernandina, and Little Talbot Island off of adjacent to Jacksonville Beach. So that covers Fernandina Beach, Jacksonville, St. Augustine, Palm Coast, that's where Representative Shirley Chisholm and a lot of snowbirds came and built and retired there, a significant retirement community, and Daytona Beach. Daytona Beach, one of the former tourist capitals of the world. And of course, there's the Space Coast, all the way from the Space Coast is from Titusville to Melbourne, which entails Cocoa Beach, which is where Cape Canaveral is. And so that's why it's called the Space Coast. So that's called Northeast Florida. I always thought Central Florida, and when we talk political, we talk about the Central Florida corridor, which goes from Daytona all the way across to Orlando, all the way to Tampa. But this website has made 8 regions of the state of Florida and broken into those 8 regions. So remember, we're going to go in more detail, talk about where is the most desirable place to live, where is it more financially feasible to live, what's crowded, where areas to stay away from, where the housing industry, where the jobs industry. We'll talk more about that. But I just want to set a predicate tonight by talking about these regions. So when we talk about these special essential elements, we'll say, okay, we know where that is. The next region is Central Florida, and I'm a little surprised at what was Central Florida. Another part of Northeast Florida was Palatka. Palatka was another part of Northeast Florida. But I'm surprised. Central Florida is, of course, Orlando, Kissimmee. It's far south down to Avon Park. And actually, Palatka is in the Central Florida region. But of course, the big area of Central Florida is, of course, Orlando. And it kind of begins at Ocala. It kind of begins at Ocala, right outside of Gainesville. Um, we want to again. So you have another one of the state's larger universities, my alma mater, in fact, the University of Central Florida. The University of Central Florida. Toya says that they did an amazing tour of American Beach. I heard about the fun. I'm gonna have to go there. Wendy and I'm gonna have to steal away and go there. Max says screaming is often about who can be the most controversial. Okay, yeah, that's what it is. You're right about that, Mac. That is exactly is. That's how they're just like Shark Radio, the Greaseman, and Stern back in the day. That's what it is. It's about who can be the most controversial. So Central Florida is a region. The University of Central Florida in Orlando, where I ended up, I commuted from Daytona to Orlando to finish up school there. Central Florida, did you see designated in lavender? Orlando is Central Florida. University of Central Florida is the largest university, not the state of Florida. It is the largest university in the United States. Can you believe that? When I was there, I didn't finish. I finished junior college there in Jacksonville, and then I worked 7 years and finished up school to get over to grad school. I finished in '86, and it was still a small school. It still had small classrooms that were not filled. Now, when I started taking students there on college tours when I moved back to Florida, it has stadium seating for almost all classes, and they got graders. When I went there, the professors knew you by name. They knew you well. So kudos to Central Florida on your growth, University of Central Florida. And of course, one little mouse made Orlando go from being a city that was dubbed City Beautiful, which it is. It was a beautiful city and known for its beauty. In fact, downtown Orlando now, when you travel less than a mile, you will start seeing the orange groves on the right-hand side of the road. It kind of ran into, you saw those all the way down to Lakeland. I wonder what they did to compensate for all those. But that one little mouse that moved into South Orlando or West Orlando, Disney World, where we did grad night in 1974. I think the park had only been open 2 or 3 years at that time. By the way, I'm celebrating our 50th anniversary from high school. We're trying to have the organizers of that movement on either after the anniversary in a few weeks or before it. If we can't, we're already booked. We may have to get them after to talk about it. But anyway, we did our grad night then. That was before you went to grad night and fight. That's what I learned. That's all grad night turned to in the state in Orlando. But once that one little mouse moved over to Orlando, every other kind of world moved there. SeaWorld moved there. Adventure World, Lego World, all of these worlds moved there. Now, this is not the show where we're going to talk about tourists and tourist attractions, but you know that Central Florida, Orlando, is a tourist leader of the free world. There is absolutely no city in any state in Florida that is concentrated, where so much tourism is concentrated as it is Orlando, Florida. It used to be like that. LA used to be like that. Southern California had Universal and they had Marineland and all that. We have all of that on steroids in Orlando. That's another show. The next region we want to talk about is, so we've covered the Northwest region, Pensacola to not Port St. Lucie, but to Appalachia. We call North Central Florida, which is Gainesville, Lake City, over to Tallahassee. Northeast Florida, which is Jacksonville is the largest city, of course, in that group. Fernandina Beach, Palm Coast, Daytona Beach, the Space Coast. And now we've just finished talking about Central Florida, where Orlando and Palatka and Ocala. Ocala is a significant place. There used to be a tourist place in Ocala that was called Six Gun Territory. Does anybody remember Six Gun Territory? That was right outside of Orlando, Ocala. Now Ocala is known. In fact, some of the guys, when we're putting together a golf tour somewhere before the summer ends, Now it's known for the golf course. I can't tell you the name right now. There's a golf course in Ocala that has the 18 holes are a replica of 18 of the iconic golf course holes across the country. That's amazing. So you play one hole and it's a replica of that iconic course there in Sawgrass outside of Jacksonville. You play another course, it replicates a hole. You play another hole, it replicates the hole, that iconic par 3 over there that Tiger and everybody had a tough time with at the Masters in Augusta. So the one has it just has 18. So that's in Ocala and in Palatka, and of course the biggest city there is Orlando. The next thing the next region of the state we want to talk about is West Central Florida. That's the green area of the state, West Central Florida. That West Central Florida is that's where Tampa is. Ugh. Everybody don't feel like that about Tampa. I just never thought a whole lot of Tampa. That's my dad's hometown, so I guess I better be cool. Tampa and St. Pete and Clearwater and all of those are the cities there. Of course, you know, Tampa is not quite inland. I mean, it's inland. It's not quite coastal. St. Pete is right there on the Gulf of Mexico, right on the Gulf. So these are the regions of these are the major cities there in West Central Florida. So far, where are the regions that you guys like? What do you like? I know where everybody's going to say, and I'm working my way to it. In fact, be to it in just a second. The next region we want to talk about is Southwest Florida. Southwest Florida. That's Bradenton. Normally, the Bradenton, Tampa, and St. Pete area are all clamped together there, but actually, this website picks up Bradenton. Actually, they say Bradenton and Sarasota are right there in Southwest Florida. West Florida goes all the way down to kind of like the part of the Everglades and Bonita Springs. But the biggest city, the largest city is Fort Myers, Cape Coral, and all of those there. Sarasota, but the largest city there is Fort Myers. Fort Myers is, and of course, some of you may know, unfortunately, we know some people that were, this is some interesting stuff, isn't it, Marcus? I guess I'm glad you guys are keeping me back from feeling like I'm some kind of geek, because this stuff fascinates me. Unfortunately, the last big hurricane that struck our state left a devastating effect over there on that southwest region, that southern region, Fort Myers and Cape Coral and those places. And they really kind of wiped out. We had friends that we just met on a cruise in 2021, November 2021. We met some good friends that lived there, and they have just returned. Their home had to be totally rebuilt. It was leveled. And we know people, our work in Faith in Florida has reached out to some people over there. Our hats go out to them. We know what it's like living in South Florida to experience the devastating effect of hurricanes. And they are just, because they suffer billions of dollars of damage there in primarily Cape Coral and Fort Myers due to that hurricane 2 years ago. As I say, part of the Everglades are there over in southwest Florida. Cape Coral is a nice ritzy community. And one of the sleeping tourist attractions there is Naples, Florida. Naples is kind of a ritzy area, but it has a significant touristy part of it, and it's right along I-75. The one thing that I did not mention was one of the more significant one of the most significant areas of Florida is outside of Ocala, and I meant to mention when I talked about Ocala, is the Villages. The Villages is, I don't know what, 50,000 people. It's a retirement community, and it's not like we think, okay, Florida retirement, old people are in their 70s and 80s. No, people who recently retired, and not just from Florida, all over the nation come down. In fact, from people we knew from from Illinois, live there in the Villages. That's just around the Ocala area, between Ocala and Orlando region there, the Villages, a very well-known section and a ever popular place there. We're down to the last two, and I'm going to do my home region now. Where I live is Southeast Florida. Yay for the bottom. Most of us call it, back in the day, we call it the dirty South. That's Southeast Florida, which is bordered. It starts in the Okeechobee region, and it comes all the way down to Homestead. Homestead was where the most devastating hurricane struck down here in the 90s, and the Air Force Base and everything was just annihilated down there. But from Okeechobee all the way down to Homestead and Kendall, that region. So Southeast region has Fort Pierce is a part of that. Port St. Lucie. All of those are part of most websites break that off and call it the Treasure Coast, and it's its own little region that Fort Pierce area all the way down to Jupiter and west all the way to Moore Haven. But that's part of the Southeast. This website makes that a part of the Southeast region. I know when I'm on the road and traveling home, once I get over to Fort Pierce, and you can transfer from 95 over to over to the Turnpike, I know I'm almost home and I'm excited to be here. Coral Springs, Palm Beach, Jupiter, that was Burt Reynolds' hometown. A lot of the rich and famous still live there in Jupiter. Palm Beach, Delray, Boca, another ritzy area, Pompano, Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale, Hialeah, Miami Beach, Kendall, and Homestead. And Fort Lauderdale and Palm Beach and Miami are kind of like the well-knowns. In fact, do we share TV? No, Miami shares TV and radio together, and then Palm Beach shares some of those stations with the Treasure Coast. And so that's the Southeast region of Florida. And the final region is its own region are the Florida Keys. The Florida Keys, from Key Largo all the way down to Marathon and Key West. The Florida Keys, Key Largo down to Key West. Now that has that 8 Mile bridge, but before you ever get to the 8 Mile bridge, the Keys, the drive to the Keys is one of the most scenic drives in all of America. You're driving, it comes to a point where it's 2-lane, and it's kind of like riding on the bayou out in Louisiana. You are actually just feet from on one side the Gulf of Mexico, on the other side your feet from the Atlantic Ocean. You can see both bodies of water. One of the most fascinating, it should be one of the 8th wonders of the world, is when you're on that 8 Mile Island Bridge, that 8 Mile bridge, you can see where the Gulf and the Atlantic Ocean comes together. It is a phenomenon. The waters of the Gulf are more gray, bluish gray, and the waters of the Atlantic are more aqua. You can see them actually coming together. I hope you can see my hands. They come together, and there's a street. They don't intermerge. It's just like one street, like there's like a dividing line, and you're on that bridge, and you can see that it's one of the most phenomenal things you can ever see. Okay, let me do this real quick. And Key West, again, one of the greatest drives in all of America. You certainly you can't come to Florida and not designate time to go down. Let me go. So the Florida Keys is its own region. Southwest Florida, highlighted by Naples and Fort Myers. Southeast Florida, highlighted by West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami Beach, of course, the great tourist attraction, South Beach. Northeast Florida, bordered from Fernandina Beach, Amelia Island, down to the Space Coast of Melbourne. Central Florida, Palatka and Ocala, all the way down to Winter Haven and Avon Park. That's the purple area you see in there. And then West Central Florida, that's Clearwater, St. Petersburg, and Tampa. all the way up to Bradenton and Cedar Key. The next area is North Central Florida. That's Tallahassee is the largest city there. That's where most of our state universities are. Gainesville, Lake City, and of course the Northwest Florida, which is Apalachicola, the Funiac Springs, Panama City, Fort Walton Beach, and of course Pensacola over the sides. This is a vast state. Tonight, all the dialogue I want to do was just kind of lay out for you. Toy said we did an amazing tour of American Beach. Yeah, I've heard about it. We really got to go there. So maybe the next thing, when we look at this map, the next time we're going to talk about the tourist attractions in Florida. Why would you visit the tourist attractions in each state? That's what we'll talk about the next time we do this, maybe sometime over in late June. This has been fun tonight. This was a nice pivot. Next week, Matt, we will do the Martin show. We're going to go back to the Martin show, and we're going to look at that as we reach back to that. Any questions that you have about the regions of Florida, if you'll put them on the Facebook page, I'll come back. Oh yeah, Mac, thank you. How could I? Mac says, don't ever forget the great athletes of Florida. I remember when I was in grad school in Louisville, Kentucky, and I had a good friend out of Montgomery, Alabama, and he said to me, he said, "Yeah, you one of them Wilbur Marshall eating N-words from South Florida." And at the time, I wasn't from South Florida, but there's a kind of a boldness and a brashness, as you know, Mac, for those of us who live in Florida. It's just kind of like, we're pretty proud of our state and where we come from, even though it's kind of some crazy things going on here now. But this has been so much fun orienting you. And when we come back the next time, we will talk about the tourist attractions in the great state of Florida, as Dr. Bracy would call it. Next week, we're back at you. Remember, I'm on Thursday night. I'm on the Gold Square podcast. Let me make sure I got it right. Help me, Madam Producer. Is it the Gold Square podcast? I never get to see it live. I saw it the other night because it's on the same time we're doing Bible study. But I'll get to see it. I'm going to be down and be talking about living with prostate cancer, how to overcome it, how to know the signs. That's this Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time, 7 o'clock Central time. The Goldcast podcast has its own Facebook and YouTube page, or you can get on Miss Linda Scott's page, or we may share it to my page on the Golden Square podcast. I knew she was going to get me straight on that. It's the Golden Square podcast. Listen, you have been fun tonight. Thank you so much for joining us in. Remember, our sponsor is GoGiga.com. GoGigaWorld.com. You got to hook up with them. Let them take care of all of your virtual needs. Dialogue with Dozie. We are out next Monday night. See you Thursday.